Howdy everyone, Poacher here with an Age of Magic video, and in today's video we're doing the hero spotlight for Llael, the rogue of the Dark Elves and the love child of Shahrazar and Gloriana. Don't actually know if that's true, but let's just pretend it is. So we'll get into it, look at her stats, her abilities, and what she's like in the arena. So going over the stats for Llael, the Dark Elf Rogue, she has a 1.7 million hit points, speed at 215, armor 17k, magic damage resistance 18k, basic damage 153k, critical hit chance 34, which is pretty solid. Good crit chance, which Rogue should have, not healers like some other characters, and critical damage 287k. The stats in more details are here if you guys want to stop it and have a look at anything you want. You are free to do so. If not, we'll jump into the arena and have a look at her abilities and what she can do. So heading into battle, we have Llael's basic attack, Claw of Darkness, which triggers the Rogue class mark, which is almost irrelevant. I wish it was more relevant because marks are awesome, just not the case. The ability damages one target, has a 20% chance per allied Dark Elf to increase the target's incoming damage by 40% for 2 turns, which means a 100% chance with a full Dark Elf team. Now, I know I'm going to get some comments saying, no, Polcho, you're wrong. It does not include herself, as it says allied Dark Elves. I believe this is Playcot's bad wording. There are a few heroes. I know Mizuhiku is one where he doesn't include himself in the percentage increase per high elf on the team. For Llael, I do honestly believe it includes herself, as I've tested this ability a few times and have not seen it fail. The only time I have seen it fail is when the enemy fortifies the ability, which means it still hits, it's just being fortified. So we're going to go ahead and look at the ability visual effects now on the enemy Worm Priest. She dashes across with a really nice black smoke and slashes up in the air, applying the debuff to him. He did not fortify. So a nice looking ability. Like I said, I honestly believe it is a 100% chance of landing that with a full Dark Elf team. I have not seen otherwise. So we'll move on to her first special now and see what that does. So moving on to Llael's first special ability, we have Shadow Strike, which triggers the Rogue class mark and applies the Tank class mark. Triggering the Tank class mark, the tank that has attacked will be the target of attacks for 2 turns. Now, is that poor wording as well? I'm not sure if it means target of the attack of the character you trigger the mark on, or it's an AoE taunt. If it's an AoE taunt, you might be able to work something into there. It's good to see that there is some type of mark available to you. The ability itself damages one target. Llael's damage increases by 35% if she's hidden. Llael's damage increases by 35% per another hidden ally. So you could get a fair bit of damage increase from this, especially with Drake's ability to hide allies. I believe his fog hides allies. That's how it should work. If not, I'm just not going to say anything, but that's how it should work. So other than that, we're going to go over and look at the animation visuals. We're going to attack Worm Priest again, because why not? So she vanishes, reappears, vanishes, and reappears back in her original spot and strikes the enemy. So pretty nice visuals. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but that's because I haven't really set her up in a proper combat scenario. It's kind of similar to Stealthy. With the right setup, she could potentially do a lot of damage. It's getting the setup that is the challenge. Moving on to Llael's second special ability, we have Palsy, which triggers the Rogue class mark. Damages one target. Reduces target speed by 40% for 2 turns. If the target speed is already reduced, it will be reduced further by 20%, and the effect's duration will be increased by 1 turn. So you could get a fair bit of speed decrease on a single target. Has a 20% chance per allied Dark Elf to reduce the target's initiative to 0 on the next 1 strike it takes. So initiative reset is always good. If the enemy is affected by a debuff that stops them hiding, then all their buffs will be removed, and a debuff cast that deals damage equal to 15% of the enemy's max HP per buff removed to that enemy at the start of their turn. The damage ignores armor and resistance to magical damage. So the ability has a chance to do a fair bit of damage if the enemy is unable to hide, which is a part of the Dark Elf skill set. So Llael is fitting quite nicely into the Dark Elves so far. She can do a lot of damage with this ability, again, if it's set up right, assuming that your enemy has a lot of buffs. So I'm thinking of hero or factions that do get a lot of buffs. Archons, for example. However, you've got to remember that there is the Sacrif who has the ability to remove the enemy debuffs or your debuffs. So you've got to watch out for that. If you can bypass that, you will end up doing a lot of damage. We'll go ahead and look at the ability animation on the Worm Priest because we're just picking on Worm Priest tonight. Okay, pretty nice. Triple strike. As you can see, it did a alright amount of damage. I didn't see a critical hit. So, yeah, not too bad. I don't know if one of those is the debuff. If it is, sure. I'm just trying to think of the best way you could use this. The initiative reset is really nice. It's always good, initiative reset. It's not Tyros level, but we'll take it, I guess. And I assume that the 20% includes herself as well, so there's a 100% chance of her working this ability. I honestly could not see many people running her outside of a Dark Elf squad unless you were really trying to somehow get that tank class mark to work. Other than that, I see her just being another addition to the Dark Elves. The only Dark Elf being a real step out, or the only two are the still Azariel and Roynar. Moving on to Llael's passive, we have Game of Shadows, and I'm getting a really strong Game of Thrones vibe from her at the moment. Arya, she's very similar looking, pretty standard, and if you take into effect that she could potentially be Shahrazad's child who has the ability to change his face and look like other people, she almost is perfect for the lore of this game. Moving past the lore, though, every time the enemy dodges an attack, there is a 70% chance that Llael will hide for 2 turns. If she is already hiding, the duration of hiding will be increased by 1. So playing with her first special very well, and it's not even from her attacks if they just dodge in general. Llael cannot be the target of support attacks, so pretty powerful against beastmen or any players or characters. Suna, honestly, is just the only one that stands out when it comes to support attacks. At the start of the battle, if Lokia is in the party, his initiative increases by 100%. So as you can see, I've just gone into this battle, and Lokia has the first ability. Now, Lokia is probably one of the least favorite Dark Elves. However, his abilities do come with a pretty strong amount of debuffs. Having him go first is pretty good. You can apply some pretty good debuffs depending on the ability. I mean, for example, you could go with this one first, which decreases the enemy damage output by 50% for 3 turns. So straight off the bat, you're getting a pretty big mitigation to damage. If Llael has 100% HP, all her damage output increases by 50%. The bonus decreases proportionally to her HP if that decreases. So she's strongest at full HP. With Dark Elves as well, she has the inner self-healing through her abilities. If an enemy's damage output is reduced by a debuff, it will be further reduced by 35%. So if you're taking into consideration Lokia, who can decrease the enemy damage, it's being further reduced as well. So her and Lokia work very well together, and she's giving Lokia a big boost in usefulness. You would be silly not to run him without her. As you can see, I've built what I think would be the optimal team, which surprisingly removes Roynar, because you need Drake and Azariel. They work well together. Llael and Lokia work well together. And then you've just got Naja, which you cannot put aside. She is the leader. You need to use her. So overall, pretty powerful abilities. Now, just going off what I have seen so far, I assume that this team could potentially be good against the Beastmen. The reason for that is because they apply so many debuffs to begin with. Now, when Phoenix's turn comes around, she removes debuffs, and for every debuff she removes, the Beastmen take damage. So you could straight kill someone if you play your cards right. Again, this is just off assumption. I could be very wrong. If Phoenix dies, she could bring herself back, and you're in a world of trouble. But with Wukong as a leader as well, every turn the Beastmen have, they remove a debuff. So they are taking away a little bit of damage. However, with Lokia going first, you are still applying a lot of debuffs. So it could work really well against there. Lokia going first as well. I'm not sure how that will play against a full Archon squad. We all know that the Dark Elves struggle against a full Archon squad, the faction they have been deemed to be strongest against. However, no one really uses a full Archon squad. Very rarely do you see them. But that's not the point. The point is that this team should be able to dominate an Archon squad. Does Llael being put in the mix change that? Maybe. I'm not entirely sure. We will find out when she is released officially. So straight off the top of my head, I'm thinking Beastman effective against and a little bit stronger against the Archons, removing Roynar, which is just really weird because Roynar is probably the strongest Dark Elf. So you could probably remove Drake and put Roynar in, but then you're taking a lot of damage mitigation away from the Azariel, who is normally going to be the first target on the enemy team, and taking away the Drake also takes his ability to hide enemies or allies, which increases Llael's damage. Anyway, that's just my thought process from seeing the character and how she could potentially be used. There are people out there that are a lot smarter than me. They're probably going to think of ways to use her that I have never even considered. But if you do, feel free to message me your ideas. I'd love to hear them. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I'll answer to the best of my ability. And wherever you are in the world, until next time, please take care of yourselves. Also, don't forget, I have officially opened my community Discord server. So if you are interested in joining, the description has the link to that Discord server below. Anyway, take care.